dark history of castration within the Catholic Church. The most common are the castrati, where talented choir boys aged 7 to 9 were castrated in an attempt to preserve their prepubescent voices. Shockingly, while 1903 saw the last time a castrati was used, castration among the church didn't end there. Astonishing reports surfaced in 2012 which would reveal that the Dutch Roman Catholic Church continued to castrate boys as recently as 1950. They did it as a treatment for homosexuality. One such case was Hank Heathius, who as a child was castrated when he reported his sexual abuse by a priest. Hank was then sent to a Catholic hospital, not to treat the abuse he had endured, however to castrate him for the treatment of his homosexuality. This despite the fact that he himself was the one who was molested. His castration was also a form of punishment from the church for his exposing of the priest that had abused him. Hank went on to suffer from severe psychological and hormonal disorders as a result of being castrated. In his early 20s, he planned a legal campaign against his abusers for their crimes. Before he could bring them to justice, however, he died in a suspicious car accident at the age of 23. All his files, as well as the documents he had against the church, were confiscated and destroyed. Before his death, he had been quoted as saying that he feared they will get a hold of me again. These reports went even further to expose that government officials themselves were often present as these castrations took place. A total of 10 boys are known to have been castrated by the Dutch Catholic Church for their homosexuality. These are only the known cases. These horrific documents showcase a truly dark history within the church. In the 1930s and 40s, federal subsidies for mental hospitals were much larger than those given to orphanages. Premier Maurice Duplessis saw this as an opportunity to make money. After getting the support from the provincial church, he, as well as the Catholic Church, went on a corruption spree. See, the Catholic Church at the time ran most of the mental hospitals as well as the orphanages in the area. Together, they then began to systematically diagnose children in orphanages with mental diagnoses that they did not have. This in turn led to the children being sent to psychiatric institutions, which, remember how I said that mental hospitals received higher subsidies for each patient? Well, this meant that they would now receive much more money per child, as the church owned both orphanages as well as the mental hospitals these children were now sent to. Either way, it meant that the church made more money. This led to horrifying conditions for children. Some orphanages were completely emptied out after every child was diagnosed with a mental disorder. The orphanage was then turned into a mental hospital, so the church again saw a higher profit. Horribly, some of the orphans weren't even orphans. They were children forcibly taken from their mother, as the church had a strong stance on children conceived outside of marriage. Many children were sexually abused, were used for experiments, tests, and received electric shock therapy. In the end, around 20,000 children were falsely diagnosed with mental disorders, of which many died. Eventually, among the surviving orphans, some told their stories to the Quebec government, whom gave out settlements. However, it is the Catholic Church who to this day has not apologized or even acknowledged these acts. Easter Sunday is a widely celebrated holiday by the Catholic Church as the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It is typically the most attended service every year among churchgoers. In 1980, the night before Easter, Sister Margaret Ann Paul, a nun working in the chapel of Toledo Mercy Hospital, was found wrapped in a cloth, brutally murdered inside the chapel. Her arms were crossed on her chest. It was evident by a smear of blood on her forehead that the last rites had been performed on her. The last rites is a common ritual within the Catholic Church known as the Last Prayer given shortly before death. Near her heart was what appeared to be an upside-down cross shaped by stab wounds. Father Gerald Robinson, who was the chapel's priest, became an immediate suspect, and while being interviewed by police, a district under the care of a bishop walked in and abruptly stopped the interview. For some odd reason, the priest was never questioned by police again. 23 years went by, with nothing. Then, in 2003, a letter labeled Survivor Doe showed up at a local police station. This letter stated that Doe had been sexually abused during a satanic ritual led by a priest and multiple people dressed as nuns. The priest involved was none other than Father Gerald Robinson. After the raiding of his office, it led to the discovery of a small saber-shaped tool believed to be the murder weapon. Upon further investigation, police deemed that Father Gerald Robinson had been the murderer, and he was later convicted in May of 2006 before passing away in 2014, meaning for his crime he served just 8 years. In the 1920s, the Catholic Church built a home in Ireland for unmarried mothers to be run by the Sisters of Bon Secours. For over 36 years, this home took thousands of women who were labeled by the church as fallen women. Because sex outside of marriage was seen as a mortal sin, the church used this home, built behind 8-foot walls, to deliver the women's children, as well as to commit their crimes. These newborn children were then taken away from their mothers and put into nurseries, where infection, measles, and many sicknesses were quick to spread. When one baby got sick, it often meant that most children in the nursery did as well. Doctors were never present in this home, as the church believed that any pain the woman endured during birth was God's punishment for the sins she had committed, as well as any sickness the child got. Nuns completely neglected these children. When bodies began to pile up, the nuns began to use an out-of-use septic tank located behind the home to crowd in dead babies. When the home shut down in 1961, the nuns left to go on to different churches, but the gruesome evidence of their acts were left behind. 11 years after they left, local fishermen digging for worms made a grisly discovery. Over 800 baby skulls as well as their bodies were found in a septic tank used as a mass grave. It is believed that there may have actually even been a few of the women left in the unmarked grave as well. It is now speculated that these mass burials used by the Catholic Church could be located all throughout Europe. They are just yet to be discovered. During the Second World War, Nazi Germany's genocide targeted all Jews, which meant all children of Jewish descent were not spared. As a way to save thousands of these children, the Catholic Church took steps by issuing false baptism certificates identifying Jewish children as Catholic children. While most of these baptism certificates were false documents, France actually baptized many of these children and then put them in Catholic schools as well as orphanages to hide them. This in itself should have went down as a great part of the Catholic Church's history. However, when the war ended, the Catholic Church issued a directive across the entire Catholic community, forbidding its members and fellow churches to return these Jewish children back to their parents. Some of these children were never even told of their Jewish descent and were told that their parents had died. They were so young that they had no other memory other than that of being in a Catholic orphanage. While some children were eventually given back, it is still not clear to this day how many Jewish children were given back and how many were actually saved.